Police didn't ask who owned the land, they asked why I was trespassing on it. Standing on property my family had for nearly 80 years. I suddenly became the Then the HOA president smiled, held up a document, and calmly told the deputies the farm didn't belong to me anymore. I reached into my truck and pulled out one forgotten document, a survey older than every person standing there. 30 seconds later, everything changed. What the deputies discovered buried beneath the grass would expose the biggest HOA land fraud the county had ever seen, destroy everyone who thought they had stolen my farm. Every sentence should feel authentic, deliberate, and emotionally grounded. Speak with natural pauses and measured pacing, never rushing the narration. Begin quietly, creating curiosity rather than excitement. Let the audience feel that an ordinary morning is about to become something unforgettable. As the story develops, gradually increase intensity without shouting or sounding theatrical. During confrontations with the HOA, law enforcement, or developers, maintain complete control in the voice. Sound confident, composed, and believable, allowing the facts themselves to create tension. Every important revelation should feel heavier than the last, as though the listener is uncovering hidden pieces of a much larger truth. During investigative sequences, adopt the tone of an experienced journalist explaining verified evidence. Pause briefly after important discoveries, financial records, legal documents, survey markers, or witness testimony. Let each revelation sink in before continuing. The narration should sound intelligent, precise, and trustworthy. During emotional moments involving family land, memories, legacy, or personal sacrifice, soften the delivery slightly. Do not become overly sentimental. Instead, speak with quiet reflection, allowing emotion to come naturally through restraint. The listener should feel empathy without hearing exaggerated acting. Inside courtroom scenes, maintain authority and composure. Deliver legal developments clearly and confidently, emphasizing the weight of each decision without becoming dramatic. Verdicts, testimony, and evidence should feel powerful because of their significance, not because of loud delivery. Toward the ending, gradually transition from tension into hope. Slow the pacing even further. Allow each final sentence to breathe. The conclusion should leave the audience reflecting on justice, integrity, courage, family legacy, and the value of protecting what cannot be replaced. Finish with a calm, satisfying tone that feels earned rather than emotional. Throughout the narration, avoid exaggerated excitement, artificial enthusiasm, cartoon-style acting, or rapid speech. Maintain consistent cinematic realism from beginning to end, as though narrating a premium streaming documentary. Every word should sound intentional, authentic, and memorable. Gradually increase intensity while remaining completely composed. Every discovery should feel like another layer of a larger conspiracy. Read legal documents, evidence, financial records, witness statements, and investigations with complete confidence. Never rush. Allow every revelation to settle before continuing. When HOA members appear, the narration should become firmer and more serious, but never angry. Let their actions create the emotion, not the voice itself. Maintain complete control while allowing the audience to feel growing injustice. Slow the narration slightly. Sound calm under pressure. Even when police arrive or weapons are visible, remain controlled and believable. Avoid panic. The audience should feel tension because of the situation, not because the narrator is shouting. Speak with authority and precision. Every legal statement should sound factual and powerful. Give slight emphasis to verdicts, evidence, witness testimony, and judicial decisions. Maintain a professional documentary tone. During memories of family, grandparents, farmland, legacy, or sacrifice, soften the voice naturally. Speak as someone remembering important moments rather than performing them. The emotion should feel genuine and restrained. When justice is finally served, do not celebrate loudly. Instead, sound quietly satisfied. Let relief replace tension. Slow the pacing slightly and allow every sentence to breathe. But that wasn't the worst part. What happened next changed everything. Then the investigation uncovered something nobody expected. That's when the entire case took a completely different direction. The next document explained everything. The deputy looked at the document. Then he looked at me. Nothing was the same after that. But that wasn't the end. The next discovery changed everything. What happened next surprised even the investigators. That's when the real story began. Nobody inside the courtroom expected what happened next. Some battles are fought for money. Others are fought for memory. In the end, Mercer Heritage Farm wasn't saved by luck, it was saved by people who refused to let the truth disappear. The county engineer didn't need long to reach a conclusion. After comparing the original survey markers with the newer construction plans, he quietly looked toward the sheriff and shook his head. The boundaries submitted by the HOA didn't match the official county records. Entire sections of my family's property had been shifted on paper by several feet, just enough to make it appear that the developer legally owned land they had never purchased. It was a simple adjustment to anyone reading a map, but in reality, it represented hundreds of thousands of dollars in stolen property. Standing there beside the warning sign I had installed only hours earlier, I realized this had never been about a piece of wood with bold black letters. The sign had interrupted a plan that had probably been developing for months. Within 48 hours, construction across the western boundary came to a complete stop. Bulldozers remained parked exactly where the operators had left them. Concrete trucks turned around before reaching the entrance. Bright orange stop work notices appeared on temporary fencing, and every subcontractor received orders to leave immediately. The silence felt almost unreal. Only a few days earlier the area had been filled with engines, machinery, and workers preparing foundations. Now, the only sound came from the wind moving across the wheat fields. It was the first peaceful morning I had experienced since the entire nightmare began. That peace didn't last very long. News of the investigation spread faster than anyone expected. Local television stations arrived first, followed by regional newspapers and independent journalists looking for answers. Cameras lined the road outside my property while helicopters occasionally circled overhead. Reporters kept asking the same question. How could a homeowner be accused of trespassing on land his family had owned for generations? Nobody seemed satisfied with the explanation offered by the HOA. Every interview only created more questions. The investigators, however, were asking much more important questions. They weren't interested in public statements or carefully prepared press releases. They wanted emails, bank records, engineering contracts, survey reports, and every document connected to the subdivision project. One subpoena became 10. 10 became dozens. Every new document uncovered another company that seemed to exist only on paper. The deeper they looked, the larger the operation became. Several former HOA board members suddenly requested attorneys of their own. Some claimed they had never seen the complete development agreement before signing it. Others admitted they had simply trusted the HOA president without reviewing the property boundaries themselves. Responsibility passed from one person to another, but the evidence refused to move. Every signature remained exactly where investigators expected to find it. The developer attempted one final strategy. Their legal team announced that the survey discrepancy had been nothing more than a technical misunderstanding. They insisted that any mistakes could easily be corrected through revised paperwork. That explanation might have worked if the original county survey marker hadn't still been buried exactly where my grandfather remembered placing it decades earlier. Metal doesn't lie. Neither do historical county records. As investigators continued their work, something unexpected happened inside the community itself. Neighbors who had avoided speaking to me during the early weeks of the dispute slowly began walking across the road to apologize. Many admitted they believed the HOA's version of events because it sounded official. They assumed someone wearing a suit and carrying legal documents had to be telling the truth. Watching the investigation unfold changed their perspective completely. They realized how easily ordinary homeowners could become victims when nobody questioned authority. One elderly neighbor handed me a faded photograph taken nearly 50 years earlier. In the background, barely visible beside an old oak tree, stood the exact survey marker everyone had spent weeks searching for. That single photograph confirmed what our family had been saying from the very beginning. The boundary had never changed. Only the paperwork had. The courtroom hearings that followed lasted longer than anyone expected. Expert witnesses explained surveying procedures in remarkable detail. Historians presented archived county maps. Engineers compared aerial photographs taken decades apart. Financial analysts traced money flowing between development companies, consulting firms, and individuals connected to the HOA leadership. Piece by piece, the entire story came together until even the most complicated transactions became impossible to deny. Throughout the proceedings, I found myself thinking less about winning and more about protecting what remained. My grandfather often said that land carries memories long after people are gone. Standing inside that courtroom, I finally understood what he meant. Every acre represented birthdays, harvests, family gatherings, and countless mornings watching the sun rise over fields that generations of my family had worked with their own hands. That was the real reason I refused to surrender. By the time the final hearing approached, the atmosphere inside the courthouse had completely changed. Confidence had disappeared from the defense table. Reporters filled every available seat. Outside, residents from across the county gathered quietly behind the barricades, waiting for a decision that had grown far beyond a simple property dispute. This was no longer just my family's fight. It had become a test of whether powerful organizations could rewrite ownership with nothing more than paperwork and confidence. As the judge entered the courtroom for what everyone knew would be the final ruling, the room became completely silent. No phones rang. No reporters whispered. Every eye remained fixed on the bench, waiting for the words that would decide not only the future of Mercer Heritage Farm, but whether the truth could still overcome carefully planned deception.